In this episode, we've been talking about, in this series, I should say, a love. What is love? What are the different components of love? How do we have love that is Christ-like for another person? And how does that result in the way I date, in the way I have friendships, and in my marriage? So, on this episode, we're going to look at the various functions, the various ways we love each other, and what happens when our marriages lack passion. We end up just feeling like we're roommates. How do we take care of that? And how can we invest today to reverse a sexless, passionate marriage? Next on this episode.
Welcome to The Art of Relationships. This podcast is produced by the Biola University Centre for Marriage and Relationships. Let's get right into it.
So, at least one of the cool things that we get to do on this podcast is talk about different ways in which we love each other, the ways that comes out in a dating relationship, how my love and our love was growing and fun and exciting while we were dating. And then something interesting happens after you, let's say, get married and you have this passion. Those first few years are real kind of, yeah, they're awesome and they're fun. And you have a relationship that is growing and strong. But one of the interesting things that it lacks oftentimes is this sense of companionship. Now, it doesn't lack it, it's just not as strong, right? And so there's these interesting theories in psychology, and it says this, that we have high passion we tend to find in couples that are within the first maybe 7, 8 years of marriage. And the idea of companionate love, that deeper love,
That friendship.
yeah, that deeper companion, almost type of intimacy plus,
Yeah.
right, this passion and everything else. And that develops, it takes a little bit of time. And I think, it's not like you and I weren't great companions the first 7, 8 years, but trust was developing,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah. Of course, you trust each other. You love each other when you get married.
Yeah.
But there's a deeper, richer
Yeah.
form of trust.
Yeah.
The more time you spend together,
Yeah.
the more your lives are intertwined, the more experiences you share, the more positivity and well-being and selflessness and sacrificial love that
Yes.
grows,
Yeah.
that sense of trust and commitment grows, that makes it so much richer than you were ever able to at the very beginning.
No, that's so true. So let's go back and review real quickly what we talked about with love. There's a great triangular theory of love from Robert Sternberg. It's about 40 years now, 30, but really, just as a quick review, if you didn't hear our previous podcast on situationship, love starts with this at the very top. Just think of a triangle. At the very top is that these triangle corners are labeled. One is intimacy, right? That's a friendship, deep intimacy, love, a lot of emotional connection. I like you. We're good friends. At the bottom left, at least we talk about passion, right? That
Romance.
Yeah, romance and
Sex.
passion and infatuation, right? And on the bottom right of the triangle, we would call that a commitment love, right? So we mentioned that if you have intimacy and passion on the left-hand slant, right? You have intimacy on the top, passion on the, but no commitment, you're in a situationship,
Right.
okay? Let's look at one in which you have intimacy, a friendship, and you have commitment. We've made a vow, but we don't really have a lot of passion anymore. This is that idea of a loveless or a loveless marriage almost, right? A passionless marriage.
Passionless, because passionless is different from loveless, right?
Yeah.
So where you're more like roommates.
Yeah,
That
that's good.
whole I love you, but I'm not in love with you, maybe?
Yeah, I think that's it. So now the good news about, this type of love is that many couples experience high passion after they've made that vow and that commitment to each other, they like each other. Light intimacy is always there,
Right.
the top part.
Those first couple of years, it's
Yeah.
really passionate.
Yeah, and it's a growing sense of a commitment to another person. Well, they did this study and they found out, they looked at the brains of those that are newly married, and they looked to see what part of the brain was firing when they thought of their partner.
Mhm.
And what they found was high levels of passion. So we're looking at this emotional part of the brain that responds when they thought about their spouse, right? Everyone had the intimacy, but that passion was really high. And the companionate part of the brain, that part that says, I'm committed to you, I trust you, I fully feel this with you, it was growing. It wasn't as strong. Now, they also then found something that was commonly referred to as a problem for people that had been in marriages more than 10 years, is many of them expressed that it was passionless, passionateless, right?
Mhm.
But but what they did find instead was that there were still about 60% of couples still had high passion, but their companion levels went up way beyond the new couples
Oh.
that would have only been married a couple of years. And so that's the good news. The bad news is that there are a subset of people that are married that have high commitment, right? They still like each other,
Mhm.
but they've just lost that
The
passion and the romance.
Mm.
Let's talk about that real quickly. Lisa, in marriages that we would say are passionateless, right? What would what do you recommend? We've seen these, especially in couples that have been together for a while. It's like, okay, I've been there, done that. I don't feel as, I don't know, romantic toward them. It's like I've lost something. I remember a young
Mhm.
couple came up to you one time, and the woman had basically said, look, I like him, my husband, I mean, I made a commitment to him. I'm not leaving, but I just don't feel that passion. I remember your answer. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I had encouraged her to go back and think about what, like, when he comes home at the end of the day, what did you used to do when you first got married? And she's, oh gosh, I would just drop whatever I was doing. I would run and meet him at the door and give him a hug and kiss. And I said, well, what do you do now? And she's like, well, just whatever I'm doing, I keep doing. He comes in, he says hi, say hi. Then he goes off in his room and I just keep doing whatever I'm doing. So I encouraged her, I want you to go back and start doing what you used to do. Just do the behavior.
Yeah.
Do it over a period of time, let's say 2 weeks. For the next 2 weeks, I want you to start going and meeting him at the door. I want you to put a smile on your face, give him a big hug, maybe give him a big kiss, and just say, I'm so glad you're home. Welcome home. And then see what happens.
I'm sure she thought that was a little bit awkward.
Yeah, well, she said that just feels disingenuous, like I'm putting on. So, well, regardless, maybe the emotions aren't there. I still would like you to go through the motions and see what happens. And so she did. And I said, really, and like put your heart into it. And so what she found was, at first her husband was like, whoa, what's going on? You're meeting me out the door. That's kind of weird, but okay. But what she found is that after a period of time, maybe after about a week of doing it, she found she began to look forward to it. She noticed the impact that it was having on him. And now when he came through the door, he was actually looking for her and had a smile on his face, which reinforced her behavior and her emotions, which stirred the emotions in her own heart.
It's interesting.
And so the whole principle, kind of the fake it till you make it, or the faith, you just in faith you act before you factually see it coming back. But just by following through on those behaviors, her emotions began to follow them.
Lisa, it's a perfect demonstration of something in psychology, the psychology of social psychology of attitudes. is what we think and what I feel, or what my attitude or opinion towards something is, then I will behave accordingly, right? I like exercise, or I feel it's important to eat well, then my behavior should be I should eat well. And so we can say that our attitudes predict our behavior, right? If I have high value towards, staying in shape, then you should be able to predict if that's high enough, then I should show activities like that.
And
Eat well.
exercise.
But the most interesting thing, now it's about 40 years ago now, but was the very strong connection of just the opposite occurring. When I behave in a certain way, my attitudes follow. And so what you basically, in other words, I'm out here exercising and running and eating well and behaving. And let's say I had very limited or didn't really care much whether I was healthy or not. I didn't feel it. But pretty soon I started to feel how important that was. Right. So what you told this gal was, hey, act as if you. What would you do and what did you do when you loved him and with passion? Then do that and your emotions will follow. So so you have the behavior first, it just reverses it.
Isn't that the basis for these Hollywood romances where they fall in love? They're acting in a movie, but they end up falling in love with each other because in the movie they're pretending to be a love interest and have this kind of romantic relationship. And you see it time after time where it's either they've gone into a personal relationship, not just professional, but personal, or it's wrecked a marriage or a previous relationship because they've become unfaithful.
Yeah,
Because I'm in love with someone else.
Great example. Now, so here's where we're at. We have high intimacy, right? That is as far as liking and friendship, intimacy. And we have what's called high commitment on the right-hand bottom side of this triangle. And those two together along that slant lead to this idea of strong companionship, right? I'm not leaving you. We're friends. And now we're talking about, but that passion can leave some marriages, right?
And so what are some of the reasons why does that passionate side
Yeah, let's talk
of
about it.
feeling really deeply in
Yeah.
love?
One
Why
thing,
does that?
one thing I think, yeah, this is a great question. I would say one thing, Lisa, that ends up happening is I'm everything I know about you, I learned while we were dating or first married. And so oftentimes I think couples go, oh, I know this person. I can tell you everything about them. I can tell you what they think, what they believe, what they love, and because I know them. And so now you have somebody 20 years say, well, tell me about your spouse. Like, well, here, they like this, this, and this. Well, in reality, we change. And one of the keys to keeping passion in marriage is to recognize that the other person has most likely changed in a lot of ways. And you need to figure out, if you want to keep passion, is keep the excitement in there by asking them a simple question. What do you dream about? What do you think about? What's on your heart? Where are you? And learning that the other person has probably some new things on their heart, new ideas, new ways of looking at things that you are just assuming that you already know, right?
Yeah, you stop being a student of your spouse. You stopped being curious.
You stop being curious. And when you do that, it becomes, oh, they're just like this, or that's them, or this is what the hell they respond.
I don't have to ask them because I already know how they're going to respond.
Yeah, and we have to recognize right away, Lisa, that the person we've married has probably changed. You probably have been married to 4, 5, 6 versions of me.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank goodness.
Yeah.
Because after being married for 38 years, I would hope that I've grown, I've changed, I've developed in new ways, new areas, new ideas, new interests, and that I'm growing and developing as a person. And you have too. And I don't want to take for granted that I know everything about your deep inner world. Yeah, I know a lot of things about you. but I can't take for granted that perhaps some things have
Yeah.
changed.
And that will lead to an increase in passion or a decrease if you just assume they're always the same. This is where it's going to be, and it's been there, done that.
Yeah.
Right? I remember just simply asking you the question one time, what do you dream about, or what would you do if you had, a couple of weeks, you'd say, I'd love to go on adventure. And we're in an airplane, and I just simply asked. So here's one quick practical takeaway. If you're in maybe a passionless marriage, you would ask the other person, what do you dream about? What's on your heart? What's something big? And I remember you said, gosh, I just love adventure. And so what did I do? I just decided to, take that. And I went, well, if she loves adventure, then I'm going to plan something fun. All right, east, west, north, south. And whatever majority is, we did that. And then we found a hotel later that night, 8 o'clock, somewhere near the Grand Canyon, I think. And then we ended up at, south in Arizona somewhere later on. And we got home, and I remember you very clearly saying, Chris, I'm thinking, that she just thought that was a grand adventure. And I remember you always, Chris, don't ever do that to me again. That was so stressful. And you didn't have a hotel room. We didn't want her staying.
I totally remember that. But I remember you scored on another adventure and it was not long after that conversation on the airplane when you surprised me with a weekend away, just the two of us.
Yeah.
And you didn't tell me where we were going. You told me to pack for cold.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. And I did not know where we were going until we got to the airport and we checked in because we were going to Aspen, Colorado. And I love the mountains. And you had planned that we would go because we dated when we were dating in our first year of marriage. We lived in Colorado. So you had planned going back to visit in Colorado all the different places that were meaningful to us when we were dating in our first year of marriage. And you did that for our anniversary. And that was so romantic. I loved it.
That took place immediately after the misadventure of Chris and Alisa. We went on a true adventure. Have you ever felt that sometimes in marriage, like everything starts to pull you apart, and it's just not a coincidence, right?
Yeah, the Bible reminds us that we have a very real enemy who's been trying to divide couples since the Garden of Eden.
At least I think it's why, and one of the things that led us to creating the Going Deeper Together Spiritual Armor Required. It's a 5-lesson course that equips couples to recognize the enemy's tactics and help you stand strong together.
And you'll discover the number one way the enemy gains an advantage and how to counter it with really practical biblical tools.
Isn't it true, Lisa? It's your spouse isn't the enemy, it's the enemy that's the enemy.
And if you want to protect and strengthen your marriage, this course is for you. So you'll find all the details in the show notes, so check it out. You've just got to put some boundaries in place, say no to things that are good in order to say yes to the best things which are going on right here. Because if this is falling apart, if your marriage is falling apart, that's going to be the number one impact on your kids. Not what travel ball team they're on, not how many dance classes, how many tutoring classes where they are in high school in their graduating class, but rather having a stable home environment with two parents who love each other and stay together. That's the number one determining factor in your children's thriving and becoming successful, productive adults.
Yeah, that's great. And if you don't have children and you're exhausted and busy taking classes, you still say no.
Great point.
And you say no, but here's the little caveat that you and I live by. It's capture the hour and a half each week that you would, or maybe, 3 times a week that you would normally coach this team, or the 4 hours you would invest in this class. And you use that to reestablish this connection, this passion. And so one of the things that we did, and here's a recommendation, find out something fun that you can do together. Like maybe you could take up a new hobby and you use that time. Maybe it's going to a movie, maybe it's golfing. And at least that leads to another way to get passion back into a passionless marriage is to regularly schedule things like date nights. Put it on the calendar. Put it on the calendar so each of you see it and look forward to it like, ooh, well, I'm with my wife on Friday and we're going to go do X, Y, and Z. And scheduling in and having date nights is a great way to get passion back into the marriage.
Yeah, I love that. And another way to do that, I think, is to make sure that you are doing regular check-ins with each other, not just functionally, like, or okay, well, even you can take functional and turn it into emotional connection. So, like when you leave in the morning, I could say, Chris, what's on your docket today? And I find out what meetings you're having, what appointments you have, or whatever. And then I know how to pray for you. I pray for you for that appointment, for that important meeting, for that doctor's appointment. And then I follow up with you because that shows, that communicates to you that I'm interested. I care about you. And when I care enough to pray for you and follow up with you, then you walk away with the impression of, wow, she remembered. She really cares about me. And that you show genuine interest in what's going on in their lives, their hobbies, the things that are important to your spouse need to be important to you because that's where you connect emotionally.
Yeah, I love that because it begins. I think, Lisa, it gives some new ideas and some practical ways of bringing it back in the passion. Another one, you should ask this question if you want to increase the passion in your marriage is, all right, ask each other this question: what brings you rest? And what brings you life? It's like saying, what's your dream? But the life question is, what brings you life? What do you love to do? And again, that could have changed from 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And then you seek out to make that happen as often as you can for your spouse. What brings them life? Then you encourage that. You go participate with that, right? So that's and then what brings them rest? What are you doing when you need to be alone or to relax,
to refresh,
yeah.
renew. Find out what is it about yourself that you need to relax. What about for your spouse? And then you work to make that happen for each other because it's hard to give from a well that has run dry. You could give what you don't have. So there is some godly self-care that needs to take place there. When you're too busy, you need to create time to refresh, renew, let you refresh, renew, and then we have something to give to each other.
Yeah, that's great. Lisa, there's a couple of other things. There's things not to do, right? You don't encourage ever your partner, your spouse to fall into sin, right? That is, you protect that other person. But when it comes to, so for example, some people have said, well, we don't have passion. We need to go try other people, right? We need to have friendships or porn or whatever. And that is not a way to increase passion in your marriage. That's a way to increase enemy attacks onto your marriage and onto your soul. But instead, it really is as simple as remembering, what was and how you loved this person and recalling that on a regular basis. I think gratitude and gratitude lists can increase our passion for each other because it reminds us of what we like about the other person. Right. And so keeping a gratitude list is one. And then remembering the way in which your spouse does experience love. What is it? And sometimes I just have to remember that your love language, for example, is, let's say, gift giving, or your love language, in this case for you, what is it? What would you say is your strong,
Really words of affirmation and quality touch, like just even holding hands, non-sexual touch. When you put your arm around me, when we hold hands in the car, You reach over and take my hand. Things like that, those kind of bids for
Yep.
connection
Yep.
that are non-sexual, but they're actually touching.
Yep.
Physical touch, I
Yep.
think we've lost the art of non-physical touch and how important it is. So when you're sitting next to each other in the car, on the couch, or in church, hold hands. Make sure your legs are touching. When you go to bed at night, make sure your feet are touching, or your
Yeah.
hands or something. But
And-
that touch.
Yeah. And for those that don't like touch, right? I mean, maybe your love language is service. And so you can increase the passion by recognizing what your spouse, what their love language is, and making that
Serve
happen.
them.
Yeah, in this case, it could be serving, or it could be, gift giving,
Mhm.
but it really shows an intentionality in knowing you and then making you feel that kind of way.
In the way
loved.
they feel.
In the way they feel it. That's right. And
Mhm.
so I think, Lisa, a final thing when it comes to increasing the passion then is we've talked about a number of ways to do it. Well, what brings your spouse? What are their dreams,
Mhm.
right?
Be curious.
Be curious.
Mhm.
Well, what brings them life and rest, right? Make those things happen.
Yeah.
What kind of love do they feel most connected with? That love language.
And then setting strong boundaries so that you actually have time and you have energy to give to each other.
Yeah, I believe if you start working on all of those and then remind the way in which God has brought us together, and in so doing, He desires us to have this consummate love, right? Love for God, love, this idea of this commitment, and then this passion, this intimacy. And I think, Lisa, at the end of the day, as we work, also, a lot of couples will find finally they can get more passion when they start to recognize their spouse is doing things in their walk with God, right? I mean, you find that I love it when you're praying and reading the Bible or sharing your faith. That's also a way to kind of relight the flame.
Oh, it does. Because when I see you do those things and I know that your heart is passionately pursuing Jesus on a regular basis, I mean, my respect and admiration for you
Right.
just goes sky high.
Yeah.
And that's part of what makes you so attractive.
Yeah, that's awesome. So,
Mhm.
and then finally, there's little things, right? Keeping yourself in shape, or, staying active. Some of those things
Mhm.
can help rekindle that, and
Absolutely.
making an investment in that. I love one of the things you do, Lisa, is you're always, making sure that, on weekends and when we're off for a while, you still dress up. I mean, you're not dressed up, as far as that, but casual and nice. And it just reminds me again of, that joy and that passion I have because you like to see, or you like to have the house look nice or whatever it is, and you dress nice or at least makeup or whatever. There you go. Keep yourself in a place where your spouse is going to say, I like being with this person.
Yeah.
It's one way to keep the passion in a marriage and avoid a passionless marriage.
We'll just close with the verse from Ephesians. It says, "For no one ever hated his own body, but instead cherishes and nourishes it, just like Christ does the church."
Wow.
So love the person
Yep.
like Christ loves you.
Yep.
And that passion will flare. It will restore.
It will. Just go look up the words nourish and
Mhm.
cherish. What we've
It's
been
an
talking
action.
about both.
It's an
both
emotion
action.
and an action.
There you go, man. It's great. Well, it's an awesome thing to be able to sit here and talk about these kinds of things, Lisa, about how do we love each other well and love each other with passion and commitment and a friendship.
Yeah.
And this kind of amazing kind of love develops. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, check us out, cmr.bio.edu. More coming on this love series. In fact, maybe next time we'll talk about an idea of love in which there's this romance, this whirlwind romance, right? It's just very much there, but the question is, well, how long can that last? Well, it's this thing. All right, we'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
We're very glad you joined us for today's podcast. For more resources on marriage and healthy relationships, please visit our website at cmr.biola.edu. We'll see you next time on The Art of Relationships.